I think people who want to be an anti-racist leader or execute anti-racist leadership have to have a really deep understanding of themselves. They have to be willing to understand what we would call their positionality, the way in which they understand all aspects of their identity, and be willing to think about how they will unthinkingly transmit lots of different forms of oppression, including racism. Most leadership is, I can't tell you how many books I've got in my bookshelf around leadership, but it's really not done very well. Very few people are great leaders, and I think leadership really needs a complete rethink, actually. I think we kind of have a focus on heroic and authoritarian leadership. I think leaders that I see that are good leaders don't seek the limelight. They're more interested in what is a consequence of what they do, rather than taking credit for it. I suppose I've morphed the question there, because I think that leadership almost needs its own rethink, and then connected with that is this issue about what does it need to be anti-racist, which is actually really personal, deep work, but also it's indicative in terms of how you lead. That requires a different type of leadership. It requires something from people, an emotional maturity, an intelligence, the ability to dream. I mean, we don't see anywhere around us in the world that we can really have hope in. So you've got to be someone who's going to be able to say, we can be different around this. Look at me, I'm different around this. So yeah, I think there's some lots of stuff that people need to be able to express in order to deliver on anti-racist leadership. I think there's been lots of events in Birmingham history. I'm sitting here talking to you with flags down the high street where I live. I think every day we get a wake-up call in Birmingham about just how challenging this city is. I think it professes to have a wonderful multicultural story to tell. And I suppose some of that's true, but its education disparity figures have been stuck since, as many other local authorities in this country. I suppose what I mean by that is that there is some stubborn statistics that have never shifted: the exclusion of black children, the underachievement of black children, poverty and disadvantage. They aren't events. They are the kind of fundamentals of the city. They are not talked about unless something happens. But I think the daily gruel of living with racism is not a singular event. It is the life experience of many people. If I had to think of events, I think riots would be something that people might mention. The flags I've mentioned today, sort of bringing really back up to contemporary 2025. But there have been so many things in between where Birmingham has had an indication, if there, a dial on the compass, that things aren't going well. It doesn't want to dial deeper. It doesn't want to really address some of the fundamental challenges of community relations. And I think until a city really faces into some of these systemic challenges, it doesn't really have a chance to be really an anti-racist city. So I think many organisations and cities actually have come out to say they're anti-racist. And when I ask people, I say, what does anti-racism mean? They go, we have to challenge racism in all its forms. And I think that is a really nice, glib answer. Because for me, anti-racism means addressing the root causes of racism. So how does racism live? It lives through our belief in different races. It lives from our belief in the simplistic. So we kind of think all we need to do is make this city look good. If we have a few black or brown faces here and a few here, then racism will disappear. Racism doesn't disappear because of that. I mean, we are all inculcated in racist thoughts, attitudes and beliefs. So we all have work to do in order to actually address the racism within ourselves and the racism that we actually perpetuate within our society. I think there's something also about being in it for the long term. So most organisations and cities within organisations, they like to count success really quickly. So we've done this and it's kind of given us that. To address racism, you've got to be in it for the long term. I talked briefly about exclusion statistics. You can't address exclusion statistics with a kind of one-off project of some kind. You've got to look at teacher training, you've got to look at teacher expectations, you've got to think critically about what happens in the classroom, you've got to make people more accountable for exclusions, you've got to think about different strategies as teachers to address your own racism. So these are sort of deep-seated challenges that kind of thread through lots of different bits of our society. And I don't think we want to, we don't want to get deep enough and we don't want to get long-term enough to make those things matter. I think the other thing that anti-racism is about is it's not about those who are on the receiving end of racism. It is about all of us within our society. So white folk are racialised too. They're just racialised into whiteness. So what we have to understand is that there is a role for people who are white in this movement, in this anti-racist movement, or whatever we want to call it. And too often people abdicate responsibility to people who look like me and say, okay, you must have experienced racism, fix it. Unless our mainstream society recognises the way in which it perpetuates and holds and is advantaged by racism, then we can't shift it. It is about power, ultimately. It's about shifting power. I think that for a city to be satisfied with the outcomes that it has, a city like Birmingham to be satisfied with the outcomes we have, it's pretty poor show, really. I mean, how can you have a city where so many people are in poverty, so many people are racialised and in poverty, that the main key institutions are not working as well for all of its citizens? I mean, these for me would be indicators that we need to do something to fix up. And there's an honesty and a transparency about anti-racist citizens, because it's not about just celebration around the October Black History Month. It's thinking, what do we do the 11 months of the year? And it's being very honest about what it means to deliver on progress. And I think these are all ingredients of anti-racism. But I suppose the most important ingredient is courage and disruption. You've got to be willing to change yourself, how you think, how you behave, how you lead. And you've got to be able to be disrupted in terms of how we deliver what we do and how we do what we do. I think we often want to be disrupted, but we don't want us to be disrupted, if you know what I mean. We want other people to do the change, and you can't deliver anti-racism, you can't deliver a more equitable society unless we're all involved in that change. Beyond racism, racism and beyond,
Anti-racism has to be the norm. Let's build a city where everyone belongs. Beyond racism, racism and beyond. Anti-racism has to be the norm. A world of understanding, that's what we crave. From every corner, every land, a tapestry woven by every hand. Harmonious call, we rise and stand.